This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy. We're giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate, where we can cover the market trends, news, and honest answers to keep you ahead of the real estate game. Laricy Live is brought to you by Lincoln Title. Lincoln Title is the best and most efficient title company in Chicago and is the best place to close your property. Laricy Live is brought to you by Guaranteed Rate and Ben Cohen. Ben Cohen is the #1 lender in Illinois and can close your loan in as fast as 8 days. Okay, so today we are talking about the N.A.R. lawsuit. Now, we've done 2 podcasts on this. One was like, holy crap, what is this? What just happened, this bombshell? The second one is about kind of more like kind of upset, talking about our feelings and what we think might happen. And this one is going to be going over like non-emotional, just being like, hey guys, this is what's going to happen. Of course, this can change, but right now it's August 14th when I'm shooting this. I mean, when this comes out, I don't know. On August 17th, so August 17th, these changes take place. So just as a reminder, this lawsuit is about a bunch of people were suing all realtors because they said they weren't disclosed of how people got paid. So the settlement is that agents and the MLS can no longer display publicly on the MLS or any website that's syndicated with the MLS. I mean, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, any website, Homes.com, Realtor.com, any one of these websites can no longer display commissions publicly. You cannot display commissions publicly. They want to decouple the commissions. The word cooperation, the co-op, can no longer really be used. They want it to just be separate of buyer and seller. One thing as a reminder is that commissions have and always will be negotiable. They've always been negotiable. And I think that's where the problem is. But we're not going to get into the schematics of who we think is wrong or right here. We're just going to talk about here's what we have to do. Because people got to be prepared for this. And, everybody's going to do things differently. What I'm going to tell you is this is what I've been seeing in the industry, but this is what I'm doing. And, for people out there that are looking for assistance of how they're going to go about it, and for my buyers and sellers out there of what's going on, this is it. So for my buyers, one thing I never understood is why buyers never interviewed, right? Like every time I go on a listing appointment, I get interviewed. Like I got to go through a pitch. I go through everything that why I'm awesome, what I have to offer you. And on the buy side, buyers never did this. Buyers just clicked on a button. They show up at a place. Okay, I don't know. You look cool. I don't know. Dress kind of cool. Like most people hate suits, but some people it's cool. I'm going to use you as my realtor. Now you're my realtor. And that guy gets paid. And I think that's part of the problem. So now what we're seeing is people are preparing to do buyer presentations. So just like how you go on a listing presentation, people are going to be doing buyer presentations. Now, I hate to say it, I got a leg up on almost all my competitors because I've always done a buyer presentation, always. I would never take a buyer on unless I did a full consultation. So now buyers will have buyer presentations. So what we do is we send our buyer presentation ahead of time. It's all electronic. It's always been electronic. So that buyers can see what we have to offer. We set up a consultation like we have always done, usually on Zoom or in person, to walk you through our services, who we are, and what we can offer. So this way, everybody has a clear expectation of what you're going to get with our services. From there, buyers are going to have to sign a buyer's brokerage agreement, okay? So now if you want to tour, just to tour a property, buyers have to sign a tour agreement. This is non-negotiable. This is not my rule. This is not John's rule. This is a nationwide rule. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is on their own playing field, okay? So on an even playing field, because we all have to abide by these rules. Now, are some people going to break the law? Of course. People commit crimes every day of the week. I am a by-the-book type of person. If you're working with me, you're going to have to sign this buyer's agreement. Every real estate company's buyer's agreement's going to be different. Buyer's agreement's going to state, hey, this is all the services that I offer, okay? This is why I'm worth what I have. I've also already walked you through all of this in our buyer's consultation. So I'm not just I'm like, hey guys, you got to sign this agreement. It's we've already done a consultation. You know who we are. You know what we have to offer. Here is our agreement that you are required to sign. Inside this agreement, it's going to state that you can fire me at any time for absolutely free. So a lot of companies are doing 6 months, year-long agreements. Some are 2 years from what I've seen. With mine, it states 180 days because you have to have a start and end date on these things. And it does state that you could fire me at any time for absolutely free, no questions asked. Now, a lot of my own agents, I'll tell you right now, are very upset by this because it's like, what if John sees something and then buys it with somebody else and then they just fire us? That can happen. And if John does that, that means that John didn't like you and you weren't good at your job and you didn't offer enough value to make John want to work with you. That's what this is, guys. Like, I never want to be in a relationship that somebody doesn't want to be in with me. I think I'm extremely talented at my job. Personally, I feel like I'm the best at my craft. But if you ever feel I'm not the best at my craft, then you could get rid of me for absolutely free. And all my agents will have that. I do not want anything or anybody to ever be held down and feel like they are forced to use us. We will be proving our value to you day in and day out. And if that value ever looks like we're taking advantage of, in my buyer's broker's agreements, it will say cancel anytime for free. We will be requesting in our thing, what we're going to be asking for compensation in that document as well. In the case that the seller does not pay our compensation, the buyer would be on the hook for it, okay? So just a recap, we do presentations, or we send you our presentation, we walk you through the process, we present you the contract that you have to sign, you sign it, it's cancel anytime policy, lays out what we make. This is exactly like how listings are done. So I know that everybody's been freaking out for a while about this whole situation, but the reality is that this is how it's always been done. Okay, if you're a lister. So as a buyer, it's essentially the same thing, but now what you've been doing, we're flipping it. It's listings got interviewed and, you walk them through your services and what you're going to make. On the buy side, it's going to be the same way. So just note, that's like the main difference. Now, when I put it like that, personally, I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't really seem like a big deal to me. I think people are freaking out by it because I think a lot of people don't actually offer a lot of value to buyers. I think a lot of people got into the industry and just didn't do anything. And I'm not going to get into all the schematics of this again, but I'm saying, I think that's where a lot of the freakout's coming from. So, how are we going to find out if sellers are offering commission, right? And I've done a lot of research on this. There's a few states that have already implementing this, and my buyer's assistant, Gretchen, who sets up all of our appointments, will be requesting when she sets up appointments if the seller is willing to work with a agent for compensation. Now, the problem is that anybody out there that's bought knows that this moves very fast, right? Like 4 o'clock comes up, you want to see a place at 6. I got to wait to see if this guy's going to offer commission before we get in there. So we're going to try to prep our clients that we are thinking that most sellers are still going to pay, but we can't use that technically, right? Because that would be breaking the DOJ's law. But I'm saying we think they'll get paid, but in the case that they're not going to pay us, you're going to be on the hook for it. So setting the expectation that that's going to happen, we're going to request so people can know. So I think the thing is supposed to be transparency, right? So if this whole case happened for transparency, they should be transparent that hey, this property you may be on the hook for, this property isn't. And ultimately it just comes down to the dollars and cents to you, right? Because if it's a cheaper place, but you may have to pay commission, then it doesn't really matter, right? But if the place is $50,000 more than any comp and you got to pay commission, you may reconsider that because that's a person that's asking $90,000 more than what a place is worth. But our goal is that we will try to find out in the cases if they're offering it ahead of time. I don't know if that's going to work long term. I actually think what's going to happen is that the way we're really going to find out, and what I think the future of this is going to be, is that we're going to make offers. And when we make offers, there will now always be a broker compensation form. So page 1 of our contracts, when we submit an offer for a buyer, the page 1 is going to be here's what we're getting out of this. And essentially, it's just going to come down to a round number. So, again, for our buyers out there, we're gonna try to find this out because I know everybody's going to want to know. But really, it's going to come down to is we'll find out when we make the offer. And sellers are just going to look at their bottom line, right? So seller's going to know is that, hey, if my offer is $500,000 and I'm taking a 2.5% commission, and John Smith's offers, $550 and they're taking 2.5% commission, it's like, well, the $550 is higher, right? That's how it's always been. So it's just going to come down to the net number. And, people are worried about like the finance part of this. Well, when you make an offer, okay, and you have your broker's compensation in there, it's just going to be a net number. So if I'm just going to make easy numbers. I know this doesn't add up correctly, so somebody don't like jump down my throat. But let's say it's $500 and it's a 2.5% commission, so it's $10,000. Okay, like essentially, like you're financing like the 510. But like at the end of the day, you've always done it like that. People don't understand is that like commissions have always been baked into the price since the dawn of time, right? Like if there's no commissions, all sellers care about is what is their nut? What's the bottom line? So nothing has changed here. It's just that buyers are seeing the money that is going to their agents. That's going to be the big difference. For some reason in our industry, it's always been like a semi of a hidden thing. So I understand why the public was upset. Now it's going to be up front. And if you as a agent can't bring the value to prove the worth of that number that's going to be going out, it's going to be a conversation you're going to have with your client, okay? But that's going to be the difference. So again, we'll try to ask if there's going to be compensation going to brokers, but things move very quickly. We may not get that answer in time for you to be aware, but ultimately, I don't really think that matters if we know ahead of time or not. I think what matters is that when you make an offer, no matter what, whether we know ahead of time or we don't, the broker compensation form is going when you make an offer, stating of what we're going to be making anyways. And you're just going to see that in front of your face. It's just going to be like any other rider on a contract. Now, what if the seller, when they get the contract, does not want to pay the broker compensation? Okay, so what would happen in that case is that the buyer would have to pay that. Okay, so let's use the $500,000 number for example. So let's say it's $500,000. You're paying me 2.5%. The seller's like, I'm not paying that no matter what. And you as a buyer still want to buy this place, okay? Well, if you're putting down 10%, you're going to end up putting down 7.5% because the other 2.5% is going to go to our company. Now, I think that scenario is going to be very unlikely because at the end of the day, everything's just going to come down to the number. If the offer is $500,000 with the 2.5% commission and the guy's asking $550,000, probably the reason he's not giving the place is because we're just too low and they're not going to take it. And guess what? If they were offering a commission on the MLS that you as a buyer couldn't see before, they wouldn't have taken it anyways, okay? That's the main thing we have to understand is that, like, it's not like this thing, we didn't reinvent the wheel here. All we did is show you what the wheel looks like. That's it. That's the big change, guys. It's like the wheel was behind closed doors, and now it's like, here's the wheel, right? Because now everybody can see what the money is that's getting exchanged. And if your agent brings you value, they're worth every penny and more. I know a lot of people are charging way more than what they were before. In fact, most studies have shown so far that commissions have gone up in the states that have passed this already. Now, I'm not trying to get any more or any less than we got before. And I know a lot of people out there can comment on why we're terrible people. I'm just saying is that I can't change the data, okay? But just note, this is what's going to happen, is you're going to make an offer, there will be a broker compensation form, and the sellers will consider, their bottom line. And all the seller cares about, they can see you have to realize, a seller looks at this and says, okay, 500 plus 2.5%, this is my number. And that's it. And that's what they looked at always. That's all that there is, guys. Nothing big has changed. There is nothing to panic about as a buyer. There is nothing to panic about as a seller. It's all just about this is what I tell my sellers all the time. Like, what's your bottom line? Like, after you factor in all your stuff, like, what's your bottom line? That's all that matters. Now, you're also going to work out your commission with your broker ahead of time. So when I sit down and I do my consultation, we sign our buyer's agreement, we're going to say, like, we are going to be making X money, okay? And that's a number that we're going to agree upon. And when we submit an offer, okay, and it has that broker compensation, that's what we're getting, and that's what you would be expected to pay if the seller does not want to pay that money. Now, here's the thing, is what if the seller is willing to pay me 3% commission and we're only taking 2.5% commission. Okay, what happens in that scenario? What happens in that scenario is that I am only allowed to take the 2.5% commission unless you signed our agreement and amended it saying that you allow me to take the 3%. So in a situation where I have to take more money, whether they're giving me 3% when I was only making 2.5%, or this is a big one, guys, especially in new construction, is they give out bonuses. Like I get a project down the street that we're giving bonuses out on. We're giving a $5,000 bonus on top of commission. So if you are locked in at 2.5% with your buyer's broker, and they're going to get a 5% commission, a 5% bonus for commission, you are going to be disclosed that, and you're going to have to sign off okaying that you are fine with them getting that extra money. And again, people look at that like a bad thing, but try not to get in the schematics of it. It's like, well, you as a consumer should know if somebody's making a couple extra dollars. There's always been bonuses out there since the dawn of time. There should be no reason to hide it from the buyer. If the buyer, you that's listening to this, does not agree or does not feel that person deserves that extra money, then you would say, I don't agree with that. I'd rather get that money back. Or maybe you work something out of splitting it or doing whatever with your person. But that is a conversation that you will have. So again, you as a buyer will negotiate your commission directly with the agent. And then the agents, will only be able to get that max amount that you guys determine can go out. What happens with referral fees? So a lot of agents just make their jobs off referral fees. So like in the industry, John Smith pays Jill Smith a 25% referral fee for letting them know, for referring them a client. Now, I've read two different things on this one. So this one, I got to get the bottom to it. Maybe somebody else knows more than I do. But what I've been told is that you're getting paid the money, and what you want to do with your money is up to you from there. I've also seen some things that the buyer's going to have to sign off knowing that there's going to be a referral fee. From what I've read, it does seem more heavily that, if the buyer's agent owes a referral fee, it's up to their discretion to pay it because that's their agreement between them. But I've also read otherwise. So, we'll get more to the bottom of that one because I've read contradicting things, and we will. This is still kind of new stuff. So what I'm trying to do is get out as much of the information that's out there today, so that everybody can be prepared for a few days from now. But these are things that we kind of got to be aware of. What about procuring costs? So in the industry, just so everybody can know out there, if I show John Smith a property at 123 Green Street, and then Jack showed John Smith 123 Green Street after I showed it to him, and then Jack wrote the offer, I can go after Jack for the commission on John Smith. I'm throwing a lot of names here, so you may not remember. But essentially, if I showed somebody a place, and then a different guy shows somebody a place after I showed it, I can actually go after the other agent and get paid the commission. Like they would owe me the commission, okay? And usually you set around 50% or 25%. Well, procuring cause is now done. It doesn't exist anymore. You can't use procuring cause anymore because without a contract with that person, it doesn't exist. So the whole procuring cause argument has now been gone. What about if a buyer signs multiple buyer's agreements, right? So you sign one with me, you sign one with John, you sign one with Jack, and then you buy one with Jack, and then the other two people try to go after you, right? So I don't think there's going to be a lot of buyers that do this, but there's always like that 5 to 10% of people who just hate realtors, don't really care, will go in on their own, do as they, do whatever they want, right? No question, sue me, go ahead. I mean, I'm going to be honest with everybody out there, and people are sweeping this under the rug. There's really not much you can kind of do. I can sue you if you sign an agreement with me, right? I can sue you and go after the commission. But anybody that's ever been in a lawsuit in their entire lives understand that, like, if I'm making $10,000 and I'm suing you for $10,000, I got to go to a lawsuit. Like, I'm out that money. So yeah, you could sign multiple ones and try to get away with it. I know that I've heard now 3 different companies state that if they catch wind of this, so if you do get caught, they can call the title company and put a lien on it before you close to pay them. And I'm sure, I can guarantee you, the bigger company is going to hire people to do this because it's going to end up costing a lot of money. And they're going to end up saying, like, well, if I got to pay $125,000 a year to hire a guy to pretty much just like find this out. And we're losing $100,000 a month over this, right? Like it's going to make sense. Me personally, the way I can only tell you the way I'm running my business. I have a canceling time policy for free. So you could fire me at any time. And my agents are not like happy because they hear this. But guys, I've had a canceling time policy on my listing agreement since I've been in the business. I feel like, yeah, you want to sign multiple buyer agreements. If that's who you are and what you want to do, God bless you. God bless you. I've never really had any agents or buyers that have worked with more than one agent. And I'm not intimidated by that, which is why I have a canceling time policy for free. And again, I've said this earlier, I think I'm really good at my job. And I feel like my buyers are going to be loyal to us. And in the case that I drop the ball and I'm not good enough for your standards, get rid of me. I'm not going to sue you for it. I'm not going to be a baby about it. I'm going to be pissed at myself. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm going to be mad at myself that I wasn't good enough for you to want to work with me. And that's it. And that's how this business should work. And like I have to have these agreements signed. That's why I look at it. I look at it like I have to have these agreements signed. And if you go a different direction, you go a different direction. But there will be some people, and this is something I guarantee a year from now we're going to start seeing more, is there's going to be departments where they're just going to see if you close, and I'm sure they'll probably end up passing some law where you can put a lien on the title until you pay that buyer's commission. I'm sure that'll happen eventually, but right this second, today, they can call the title company up and stop it if they find out, okay? And two, they can sue you, which we all know is unlikely. So this is the buy side. These are the main changes we could kind of expect on the buy side, okay? One other thing to mention. What about these online leads? What about these online leads, huh? What about them? Well, Zillow has Zillow touring agreements. So now there is a 7-day tour agreement through Zillow. So if you click on Zillow and you want to see a property, you will have to enter into a 7-day agreement. So like we're a partner with Zillow, so they'll have to enter a 7-day agreement. And then we're essentially going to be required to get you to sign a buyer's agreement like after that first showing. Now, that's on us to prove that we're good enough for you to love us. But that will still be in place. So I think we're going to see a big drop down in showings. But I'm going to do a follow-up on like what's been the effects on this. Right now, we're just talking about what to expect change-wise. This is pure change-wise, no opinions. For my sellers and for sellers out there, sellers are no longer required to pay a commission. Let's remember, we're only talking facts here. Sellers were always allowed to pay a minimum of $1, so they could never pay $0 before. Now they could pay $0. And in people's listing agreements, they're going to state what they feel should happen, right? And this is where there's still a little gray area because we have settled with N.A.R, but DOJ still has an open case. And DOJ really wants to decouple commissions, meaning that they don't want the seller really to pay for the buyer at all, and it shouldn't be anywhere on paperwork. But for the time being, it still can be on paperwork. There has been a big company in the city, and there's been a big company in the city and a big company nationally that said that they will not put on their listing agreements what they're going to be paying a buyer's broker. They will have addendums for that. And they're going to encourage their clients to know that they're going to be paying commissions out. So they're saying like it's going to happen, but it's not going to be on the actual agreement. It'll be on the addendum. And I think that's just something to kind of try to keep them safe, et cetera. Personally, I feel like that's a little misleading because you're signing them at one price and then saying, but it'll probably happen here. And to me personally, I think without having that conversation set a little bit more, I feel like it could be a little bit set up for failure. I don't think that's the correct way to go about it in this exact manner. I shouldn't say the correct way to go about it. I should say is that like you have to make sure that agent's doing their job correctly of explaining how it's done. And if there's thousands of people at a company, you know that more than half aren't going to be able to explain it correctly, which I feel like is going to lead to a lot of misleading. That's the problem I have with going about that way. The way that I'm doing it is simply stating is that this is my listing commission, okay? So this is what I get. And this is what we can expect on a max to pay for a buyer's agent. So like we can already know that like most offers will likely, and I'm not saying that like I'm not staring, I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying that like we can expect that the majority of offers that come in will have a broker compensation agreement attached to it, okay? And what we can say is that I can expect that when we're planning our pricing and our strategy is that we're going to be paying out a max of X, okay? And if that broker who makes an offer sends over, let's say I say our max price is going to be 2.5% going to be going out to the buyers, and we get an offer of 1%, that's great. But ultimately, like I'm going to tell all my sellers, is that none of the commissions matter at all. The only, and I know sellers are like, yeah, it's easier for you to say. No, listen, I sell properties of my own all the time. You know, like I don't want to pay. I've never met anybody in my entire life that wants to lose money. I mean, like, let's face it, like I just bought a $5.56 Starbucks, like it pisses me off. You know, I don't know, it's $5 for this. I drink this thing in 2 seconds, right? Pisses me off. So like I've never met a seller that's like, all right, let's spend a bunch of money. What I'm telling my sellers, like, ultimately at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what your bottom line is, what your net is. And what's your net when you're done compared to everybody else. It's the same thing. Nothing is really changing to all my sellers out there. Like when they make an offer, they're going to have an offer of compensation, and we have to be prepared for it. That's my problem that I have more with some of these companies that are like hiding it in there. Like in my listing agreements, it's like, this is going to be the max that we can expect to pay. I'm not saying you're going to be, I'm not saying that like we 100% will be giving all that out, because the buyer is determining what they are getting with their buyer's agent, okay? So if the buyer and the buyer's agent are only in, let's say, a 1% buyer's agreement fee, okay, and I'm telling you, like, hey, we'll give out like 2.5%, like I said earlier, like now we're 1.5% cheaper. But I'm saying is that like it's going to happen where people are going to ask for it, so it's best to be prepared and informed so you don't feel misled. And I want to be crystal clear on, you know, it's extremely important to work with buyers brokers, because working with a buyer on their own, from my experience, okay, has been difficult. But we're not going to get into all the schematics of why I think things are better or worse. I'm just saying, like, this is what we can expect to happen. And again, the only thing that matters is what your bottom line is. If all the comps are at $500,000, okay, your place is worth $500,000, and you get $550 with a 2.5% commission, doing way above everything else. If all the comps are at $500,000, and you get a $450,000 offer with a 2.5% commission, like, yeah, that's not going to make sense. You just deny the offer, right? So again, guys, it just comes down to the bottom line, and sellers have to understand, it's like, you may think this thing is going to save you money. Buyers may think that it's going to cost them more money. At the end of the day, guys, the wheel is now going to be in front of you. There's nothing behind the curtain. That's the main thing that changed. That's it. Nothing to freak out on either side. You know, everybody wants to panic. The more and more I think about it, the more I see it, I think this is a great thing for the industry. I just think it's great that everybody knows where the money's going. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to weed out a bunch of people. But we're not going to get into all the stuff. I'm just telling you, like, these are the things to think about. Now, there's a lot of negativity surrounding this, you know, and there's a lot of, you know, people talking about, like, this is going to ruin the comps on the MLS, right? And this is something I thought. I said this, and I think this is important to know when we talk about the changes, because, like, I said this to more agents than I can ever count. It's like, well, will the MLS matter anymore, right? Because if I sell something at $500,000 and I give out a buyer's commission, and your neighbor sells something at $500,000 and you don't give out a buyer's commission, that doesn't really make the comps comparable, right? That ruins everything. And I will tell you, and I'm going to give a shout out to Mr. Matt Farrell himself. He's at Procuring. He's been like a semi-mentor to me since I've been in the business. I really like the guy, very smart guy. Used to be president of Chicago Association of Realtors. He said something that really resonated with me. He said, Matt, it's always been like that. I said, what do you mean? I could see how much money you got. And he goes, but you don't know what I made, right? You don't know if I took 2.5% or 2% or 1% or 3.5%. You know, you don't know what my commission was on my side. So there's always been that 2 to 3% difference in pricing, and there always will be. And when he said that to me, I kind of thought to myself, I was angry, because I don't like being wrong, right? But I was angry, and I thought to myself, wow, Mr. Farrell, that's an extremely intelligent thing to say. I never knew I have no idea what they're listing. Their listing agreement could be 0.5% for all I know. And that would change pricing. So the MLS is 1,000% more relevant. That's even more of a reason to know. It's like, hey, are we ultimately going to know down to the dollar? Will it be off anywhere from 1 to 3%? Yeah. But like Matt Farrell said, I mean, it will always be off, and it always has been off around that price. It's as good as it could get. And, there's more negative comments online. I'll tell you, I think the problem that I see with this and why there's a lot of confusion on this is that the public is not informed. And when you read, like, all these media outlets have been posting this week, and I know I shouldn't, but I've been reading the comments, and it's disheartening. It really is. And it's depressing and it's stressful, and it's hard not to get depressed when you read them. To be honest, and I'm a strong guy. I'm confident. I'm about as confident to close cockiness as you could get. And I read these, and it breaks my heart because it's like it almost makes me second guess myself and like what people think of me as a person. And you read all of these negative things about people, and I could see how people get depressed when they read the comments online. I really can. I always thought, like, how can anybody ever care? And then you read these things like, oh my God, people hate us. Like, holy shit, like, people really hate us. And I just think to myself, is like, the majority of the people that probably write these have had bad experiences, weren't explained how this whole system worked, and worked with somebody that was uneducated in the business and didn't provide the value that they felt that they should be provided for that price point. And as negative as it is, because, as a guy that has never spent more than an hour with my children my entire adult life, and they're growing up before my eyes, and I'm missing their life because I'm devoting my life to my business. And I want to provide for my kids, and I read these things, and it just makes me second guess my life. And then I just think to myself over and over again, and I think it's important for everybody out there too that's struggling mentally when you read these things, it's just the fact that, it's better to have disclosure out there, and the more disclosure there is, the more positive consumers will think of us. And for my buyers out there that are reading these comments and thinking that, agents are terrible, etc., just note that I have a full-time transaction coordinator that I pay a ridiculous amount of money because she's worth every single penny that there is. And all day, 7 days a week, all she gets is question after question after question after question because they do not understand how things are done. And that's why it's important is that for buyers to understand is that, like, when you're buying a place, whether it's your first or 50th time, there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be questions. And having people to lean on to get you through that is worth every penny. And for my sellers out there that think that this is a way that now all of a sudden things are going to change on the cheap side, just remember, it has been and always will be negotiable and about your bottom line. And ultimately, the only thing that matters to you is to close, put that money in your pocket, and get a number that makes you somewhat smile or maybe really smile. And whether that means that there's commissions going out or there isn't, it just matters about the bottom line. And, we have to understand that I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I do have all the answers. My goal today was to tell you as much as that I know. And this is changing daily. And I'm telling you, like, this is what I'm prepared for right now, going into Saturday. I feel like I'm pretty darn prepared. I'm ready to go. I feel solid. But this will change. And a month from now, I'm going to do another one of these, tell you, like, hey guys, this is what we're seeing with these changes. And this is what else is changing industry practice-wise for you to understand. And I will try to be as open and honest and transparent with every single person out there. Should you have any questions, whether you're a seller, whether you're a buyer, whether you're just a hater on TikTok or whatever you are, I am more than happy to talk to you. I'm a real person trying to give you real answers, and that's it. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.